I debated whether to write this post because I'm concerned my daughter might see it. But I'm at a loss at what to do here. I lost my wife, Kate, 6 years ago, when my daughter, Sally, was 10 years old. I started dating again at the beginning of 2021, when we were all mostly comfortable walking around in public without fear of catching the plague. With my first 2 girlfriends, the relationships never made it long enough for me to feel comfortable introducing them to Sally. I started dating my now ex-girlfriend, Liz, in November. She met my daughter last month, and as I sort of expected, she wasn't too friendly with Liz. She wasn't flat out rude, but she was definitely cold towards her. Liz never pushed in either way. She tried making small talk about books, music, movies, anything. But my daughter wouldn't give her any more than single-word answers. We knew it would take time for her to get used to the idea of me dating again. I understand that. A couple of weeks ago, Liz came by after work so we could have dinner, and she was excited to show me an old yearbook she found from when she was in high school. We looked at it, made fun of people's hair, etc. There was a picture that had a heart around it, and my daughter asked about it, and that was Liz's first boyfriend. You could obviously tell that was drawn on ages ago. 2 days ago, Sally comes to me telling me she saw Liz cheating on me with some random dude. At no point did I believe my daughter about this. She said she saw her kidding and hugging some guy at the park, and it was just obviously not true. Just the fact she said she saw her at the park was enough to know she was lying. Liz has seasonal allergies. You couldn't pay her to go to a park in spring. I feel like she wasn't even really trying to convince me. Maybe she was just trying to start a fight. I don't know how to explain it. There was no concern in her voice like you'd think she would be upset someone is cheating on her dad, right? No, she sounded annoyed that I was asking questions and poking holes in her story. I called Liz and I told her what Sally had said, and I assured her that I didn't believe a word of it, but asked if she would come by so we could address it together. When Liz got home, she asked Sally to please sit on the couch and tell her what it is she thinks she saw. She went on about how she saw her at a park, kissing this random tall black dude. She was trying to describe the guy she saw with the heart around his picture. Liz told Sally she was a little disappointed she didn't come up with something better than accusing her of cheating with the guy she saw in her yearbook. She mentioned that if Sally had even bothered to look at the yearbook, she would have seen it's not even from the same state we live in. The odds of finding him here are abysmally low, not adding the fact that he was a POS and you wouldn't catch her breathing the same air as him if you paid me. Sally didn't say anything and wouldn't look up from her lap. Liz said she needed a few minutes to think, and that she was going to make herself a cup of coffee. She comes back a few minutes later and tells Sally that she understands that she misses her mom, and that she is probably thinking that had her mother never died, she, Liz, would have probably never even been a part of our lives. That she never intended to try to replace her in any way, shape, or form. All she ever tried to do was help me out in any way she could, because she was hoping there was a future where all 3 were at the very least civil. She said that if she was in Kate's position, she would have wanted someone to keep me company, be a partner and a friend, anything but to be alone. She gave the example that if I was ever sick with a bad flu, I could feel comfortable knowing there was another adult I could trust to keep down the fort. Just a freaking friend, really. And then she tells me, I am 35 years old, I'm way, way too freaking old to be playing this. Kind of, he said. She said, drama. I really wanted us to work out, but not at the risk of your relationship with your daughter. I tried telling her that we can work this out, but she reminded me that I have known her for less than 1 year, that we had not hit the sunken cost issues yet, and it wasn't worth destroying my relationship with my last piece of Kate. She picked up her purse and keys and left. She won't answer when I call her, and the few times I've texted her, she either leaves me on read or gives me a flat no. When I asked if we could meet to talk about this, I was left freaking speechless. I still can't even look at my daughter. I understand she's struggling, but I feel 16 is old enough to know freaking better. I changed the password to the Wi-Fi. We live in a rural area without Wi-Fi. She might as well not even have electricity. What do I do? How do I handle this? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'll probably be downvoted to hell for this. But she's 16-year-old. She's grieving, yes. And I agree she needs support and therapy. Her dad's first relationship after her mother's death is naturally complex. But she's also old enough to know that you don't tell these sort of lies, and that you don't deliberately try and hurt people, because you are hurting. I'm not sure punishment is the way to go either, but there needs to be an expectation of not doing this again with the support. Comment 2. No, you cost your relationship. Sorry, dude, but calling Liz to come over to address it was stupid. You knew it was a lie. That was a conversation to have between you and your daughter, and you deal with that, and then once you have acted like a parent, you let Liz know. Liz didn't need to be subjected to that nonsense at all. I would have walked too. Leave her alone and start parenting your kid. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around after my last post. So, after Liz left, things went from bad to worse. Sally, my daughter, she's been acting out more than ever. I thought changing the Wi-Fi password would make her realize the gravity of her actions, but it only fueled her rebellion. She started sneaking out at night, and I caught her once. She was meeting with some friends, and they were just hanging out. But it's the sneaking around that got to me. I grounded her, which only made her angrier. Then, 2 days ago, I got a call from the school. Sally had been caught cheating on a test. I couldn't believe it. My Sally, who always took pride in her grades, was now compromising her integrity. When I confronted her, she broke down and admitted that she felt lost without her mom and that she was just trying to get my attention. It was a punch in the gut, realizing that my own child was in such pain and I hadn't seen it. I decided to take action and arrange for us to see a family therapist. I thought it was a step in the right direction, but Sally saw it as a betrayal. She accused me of trying to replace her mom with a stranger who would tell her how to feel. The session was a disaster. Sally stormed out, and I was left to explain to the therapist the mess that was our life. The next day, I came home to find Sally had packed her bags. She said she was going to live with her aunt, my late wife's sister. I tried to stop her, but she was adamant. I felt like I was losing her, but I let her go, thinking maybe some time apart would help us both cool down. But then the real shocker came. My sister-in-law called me furious. Turns out, Sally hadn't gone to her place. She lied. I had no idea where my daughter was. Panic set in. I called her friends. I called the parents of her friends. I even called Liz, hoping Sally might have reached out to her. Nothing. Late last night, Sally walked through the door, acting as if nothing had happened. She refused to tell me where she'd been, saying it was none of my business. I was so relieved to see her safe that I didn't push it. I thought maybe this was a sign that she was ready to talk, to work things out. But this morning, I found a note from Sally. She said she needed space and that she'd be staying with a friend for a while. She promised she was safe and would go to school. I wanted to respect her wishes, but I also wanted to drag her back home. I made the choice to let her stay with her friend, thinking it was what she needed. I'm sitting here now, wondering if I made the wrong decision. Should I have forced her to come home? I'm second-guessing everything, and I can't shake the feeling that I've just pushed my daughter further away. Thanks for reading. My partner gives me the silent treatment on our 10-year anniversary trip. But when I find out about the affair, I cancel all their tickets and leave them stranded in a foreign country. We've been together for 10 years. This isn't the first stupid fight we've had while traveling, but there have been enough of them recently that I'm questioning what I'm even doing here. We had a fight before we got to security that made him embarrassed and furious. He started walking really fast, acted annoyed at me when I didn't try to keep up. I was walking normally, and he's way taller. I'm not going to jog. And then told me he wanted to navigate the airport separately because he's tired of me walking slowly on purpose and not paying attention to things. He begins walking ahead of me, and despite a couple of attempts from me to patch this up, he ends up getting to our gate without me and sitting on the plane next to me, but acting like I'm not there. The cause of the fight almost doesn't matter, but when we arrived at the airport for a 5 a.m. flight, we were waiting in line for the airline check-in desk to open. It was 2:45 a.m., and they didn't open until 3 a.m. When it looked like an agent was turning on the self-help kiosks, I told him I was going to go see if we could check in there. He apparently misunderstood my plan, and in the meantime, the agent arrived at the desk. and he was stuck with both our bags and couldn't get my attention despite calling my name. He felt angry and embarrassed and was mad at me for walking off and leaving him with the bags and not hearing him call me. I had already checked us in, so there was really no harm done, but I understand why he was upset. I think if he had tried to talk to me about it and asked for an apology, I would have apologized. But he decided that he's done traveling with me and essentially started giving me the silent treatment. I tried approaching him at first in a friendly way and telling him I didn't want to be in a fight. We argued, and he said I ignore him and I don't communicate with him, and I make us late, I walk slowly on purpose, etc. And he's sick of it. He accused me of gaslighting him when I disagreed with how he characterized my behavior. I eventually told him I was sorry it happened, and I would communicate better next time. I have caused issues at the airport before that made us late and stressed him out, so he's not wrong about that. But his solution today is to act like we're traveling separately, so that he doesn't have to deal with all the things I do that annoy him. I think this is ridiculous behavior when we're supposed to be starting our vacation. I've tried to write this in a way that doesn't make him sound like a total jerk because he's very sweet and caring at other times. But travel and airports cause him huge stress, and we really rub each other the wrong way when traveling. We're both low on sleep and have been stressed at work, but this behavior feels like such a massive red flag that I'm not sure I can brush it off for the sake of the trip. How do I approach this when he doesn't think he's even done anything wrong? Is this a reasonable thing for someone to do? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Hard to tell what's going on here. You buried and then glossed over the part about you having previously caused problems for your husband, who is anxious in airports or while traveling. While the silent treatment is bad, he sounds completely overwhelmed and at the end of his rope with a possibly long string of behavior that has aggravated his problems. Maybe. I'd like to hear what he has to say. I'm an anxious traveler, and my husband is so laid back that he's missed flights because he wasn't paying attention. We need to talk ahead of traveling about what we can expect from each other and how we can lessen the stress on each other. That's what good partners do. Comment 2. He doesn't do this at all at any other times? I think if you really think about it, you may start seeing this kind of behavior in other places. At the airport cannot be the only time he overreacts like this. That is a huge overreaction, in my opinion. There was a misunderstanding. You thought one thing and he thought another. For most people, a simple explanation and quick apology would have been enough to negate the situation, especially where you were trying to be helpful. Instead, he doubles down and has a tantrum and refuses to talk to you? That is stonewalling and silent treatment. Nope, not okay. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around after my last post. Things have only gone downhill from there. So after that whole airport fiasco, we landed and things seemed to cool off a bit. We got to the hotel, and I thought we could finally enjoy our vacation. But no, he was still acting off. I tried to make conversation, but he just gave me one-word answers or ignored me completely. It was like I was invisible to him. A couple of days into the trip, I found out why. I was coming back to our room when I heard him on the phone. He was talking to someone about meeting up, and it sounded way too friendly for my comfort. I confronted him about it, and he just brushed it off, saying it was an old friend from college who happened to be in the area. I wanted to believe him, but something felt off. Then, one night, he said he was going out for a walk to clear his head. I had a gut feeling and decided to follow him. I saw him meet up with this old friend, and they were definitely more than friends. I was furious and confronted him right there on the street. He tried to lie his way out of it, but I had seen enough. We had a huge argument, and he admitted he'd been seeing her for months. He said he was tired of our relationship and that I was too clingy and always causing problems. I was heartbroken and didn't know what to do. I felt like such a fool for not seeing it sooner. I spent the rest of the trip alone, trying to figure out what to do next. I was so angry at him for lying and cheating, and at myself for being so naive. When we got back home, I thought things couldn't get any worse, but they did. I found out he'd been using our joint savings account to buy gifts for her. That was the last straw. I confronted him and we had another big fight. He said he didn't care about the money or me and that he was leaving. I was left to pick up the pieces of our broken relationship and our finances. I felt so betrayed and humiliated. I had trusted him and he had been manipulating me all along. It was a tough pill to swallow, but I knew I had to move on. I started by separating our finances and getting my own bank account. I also reached out to friends and family for support. They were shocked by what had happened, but were there for me when I needed them the most. In the end, I realized that I deserved better than someone who would lie and cheat. It's been a tough month, but I'm slowly rebuilding my life without him. I'm focusing on myself now, and I'm determined to come out of this stronger. Thanks for reading. My boyfriend of 10 years won't propose or support my mental health struggles, but finds time for games. So I crash his exclusive gaming launch party and show him who's really playing games. I, 35-year-old female, am in a relationship with a 42-year-old man for 10 years. He never proposed marriage because he says we have problems. But him and his family always bring up the child argument. His family pushes how awesome of a dad he would be because they saw him play with his young cousin. But my gut tells me otherwise. I never really had the feeling that I want a child because it is a huge responsibility, and I don't find myself fit for the task. I struggle sometimes with depression and anxiety. I was always clear about this, but he sometimes guilt trips me by saying that we can't have a child because of me. I don't understand how he can imagine having a child with his lifestyle. He is a programmer who is also obsessed with video and board games. I use the term obsessed because he spends at least 6 hours daily, sometimes even 8, 12 hours on weekends playing. I know that during coding breaks, he also does research on new games, testing and purchasing them. If I tell him that I think it is not healthy, his answer is that he likes to spend time with his friends online and chat with them every single day about games. He doesn't plan any activities with me. He doesn't have any ideas, and he doesn't have any other interests. I told him let's start going to the gym together because he gained a significant amount of weight due to the chips and junk food he eats while gaming. And I also need to work out myself. But of course, my attempt failed. I do exercises while he watches me or just plays games. I have communicated clearly with him multiple times that he could talk to me and express his feelings about this. Or, if it is more comfortable, he could talk to a coach or a therapist. But he doesn't see any problems. For him, this mother-child situation is perfectly fine. I cook and clean for him, and when he is done eating, he goes back to playing. The only common activity he proposes is watching something together. I can't rely on him when my depression takes over. I'm completely alone with it, because he only watches me sink into my own darkness on the sofa. He doesn't invite me out or try to cheer me up. With all this, he believes he is completely capable of being a good father and taking all the responsibility of a child. I don't think a male who hasn't reached emotional adulthood could be a father figure to a child. In fact, I believe I would be left alone with the child-related problems, and he would just play games when it becomes too much for him, because I've never seen him sacrifice his comfort for something greater. I have explained all this to him, but he doesn't understand. He says, why would he act as if he has a child already when he doesn't? What I mean is, if I see someone completely incapable of organizing his days, time, habits, etc., I don't think he would then start to change those things when there is a crying newborn. I also can't believe he would help me when I am dead tired. Another detail, we have a cat. He only plays with him when I ask. He is completely unresponsive when the cat cries, which for me is very weird. So how would you help this person understand that he may need help? Or should I just leave this relationship? Sorry for my English. I learned without a teacher, but I always try to improve it. Please be kind. I appreciate corrections I can learn from. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'm going to be a little blunt, but I'm hoping this comment will come off as kindly as I mean it. This sounds like you want us to convince you to stay, but in actual fact, what you have is the classic sunk cost fallacy, as in, you've invested 10 years in this man, and you think because of that, you should continue with the relationship. You keep making excuses and coming up with reasons to stay, but ultimately, you've both grown but moved in different directions. This isn't about having a child or being married. This is about the absolute basics, being together. You are no longer on the same page. You have become different people. While you may have been well suited in the early days, you are no longer suited now. There's no shame in that, and I think it's best if you move on from one another and find someone, for each of you, who is better suited to the people you have become. That's not something I say lightly. I'm not the one who jumps on the get rid of the man bandwagon. But in this case, you're no longer compatible, based on what you've detailed in your post and comments. I think it's time you invested in yourself. Comment 2. Yeah, I don't see this getting better for you. He's set in his ways and doesn't want to change. You already do everything for him. I wouldn't have a kid with him either. If he's adamant about having a kid, you should probably split up. Since you're happy without kids and he wants one, it's only going to create further problems. He also potentially gets to baby trap you if you have a kid and then you're going to be a mother of 2. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around to hear more of this mess. So, 3 days ago, I caught him in a lie. He said he was working late, but I found out he was at a gaming launch party. I was fuming, but I kept it to myself, thinking maybe I could use this to my advantage. I thought if I confronted him, he'd see how serious I was about needing change. But I played it cool, and that was my first mistake. The next day, I suggested we go to a couples therapy. He laughed it off, saying, we didn't need someone else to tell us how to live our lives. I should have pushed harder, but instead, I let it slide. I thought maybe I could fix things on my own. Big mistake number 2. Yesterday, his sister called. She's always been on my side, or so I thought. She told me she was worried about him, that he seemed off lately. I confided in her about the gaming, the lies, and how I felt like a single parent to a grown man. She promised to talk some sense into him, but today she turned on me, said I was the problem, that I was holding him back from his passions, and that I was too controlling. I was blindsided. I should have seen it coming, though. His family has always been about appearances, and I was the wrench in their perfect image. In a moment of weakness, I agreed to a family dinner, thinking maybe we could clear the air. It was a disaster. His mother brought up kids again, and he just sat there, nodding along. When I tried to speak up, I was shut down. They all acted like I was the crazy one for not wanting to bring a child into this chaos. I left the dinner early, feeling like a fool. I went home alone, and he didn't come back until the early hours of the morning, reeking of alcohol. He crawled into bed, mumbling about how he'd be a great dad. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I got it so wrong. I should have confronted him about the party, insisted on therapy, and never trusted his sister. But here I am, still in the same spot, with a man who can't see past his next game. I'm starting to think maybe it's time to walk away. But then I second-guess myself. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one who needs to change. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.